One of the divine gifts for most human beings, one of 5 senses that enable us to connect with all that lies beyond our physical body. And as with all experiences on this earthly plane, it embodies the vibrations and sounds of both pain and bliss. So given the onslaught of lies and threats and uncomfortable noise that bombards us every day, I'd first like to invite you all to a practice that I find helpful. I often do it in the car after work, especially when my radio turns itself on, but frequently when I am needing peace. So you can just do this with me. First, we raise our pointer finger or all fingers in front of our mouth. Next, we exhale. Then we slowly and deeply inhale. And then we say, shh. And again, slowly breathing in, slowly breathing out. Shh. The breath helps us to calm down our nervous system, and speaking to the discordant energy coming to us helps us to feel a bit in control, at least in that moment. It harkens to what Rev Denis was speaking about earlier and to what Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning reminds us. We always have the power to control our response to anything. Now, I also want to say that sometimes also screaming like in the car is also really helpful. Now, returning to hearing as a sense that also connects us to bliss, I wanted to offer this upcoming experience to remind us of how sound is also a conduit with the divine for tranquility, soothing comfort, lightening of the heart, love and joy. We'll be playing different sounds for your listening pleasure, as they say, and I invite you to close your eyes or lower your gaze, listen, and connect with the feelings that arise in response to what you are hearing. Enjoy. And now, hear this. May you be blessed with radiant health, true loving friendship, fun, inspiration, and contented satisfaction for the energy you put into your life's work and purpose. I watched Woody Allen years ago. Okay, I'm the kind of person that when I'm in a movie theater and the credits come on, I stick my fingers in my ears and I quietly sing, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. I don't like previews. They ruin the surprise of what I'm going to see. And some things on the news airwaves, la 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 la. Or I take a break and I turn it off. But as children, we don't know that we can employ strategies to protect us from loud, unwanted sounds. My mother's voice was too often one of those sounds. Whether telling me I was ridiculous for wanting to be happy every day, or that I was just rebelling when I was questioning religious dogma, I heard a lot of messages that were not encouraging. And she was a screamer. She'd be yelling at the top of her lungs, and then the phone would ring, and it went something like this. Just do what I told you, it's not a debate. Ring. Hello? And that was confusing, because why didn't I, her daughter, deserve a calm, respectful tone? And I think I understood at an early age that there is a difference between someone hearing you and someone listening to you. I wanted to be listened to, understood. And since it was painful to not be understood, I wanted to send prayers seeking comfort to someone. I've wanted a connection to a higher power, a divine god or goddess, since I was in junior high. So I had a set of world history encyclopedias, and my religious faith connection shifted with each book I read. So we started with ancient Greece. I believed in the goddess Athena and got a coin with her likeness on it on a school trip to the Museum of Natural History. Regal, beautiful, she had her own temple, but she seemed very far away. That allegiance changed to the goddess Diana when the next book on ancient Rome was read. Very cool, never without a bow and arrow, the hunter. But I continued reading. Christianity was next, with my attempting to build a relationship with Jesus and feeling that the Calvinists were trying to improve the religion. That was in the next chapter. But I felt too guilty being brought up in a Reformed Jewish household, though totally disconnected from the spiritual side of Judaism. And as I aged, I exposed myself to so many philosophies and spiritual perspectives. Carlos Castaneda, indigenous native connections to the earth and animal spirits, spiritualism, hoping that would be a way I could connect to my grandmother, shamanic journeying, the Baha'i faith. I was very excited about that until I learned they weren't supportive of the LGBTQ+ community. Jainism, the Tao, Amrit Desai at Kripalu, that was a big mistake, even though in truth I was guru-phobic. But those are just a sample of the voices I listened to on the winding path of my seeker's journey. And then I found Unitarian Universalism. It's so strange because I don't even remember how that happened. And so many people I know have never heard of it. So I don't know how I did, but somehow I discovered this spiritual community, and we wanted to have some kind of positive environment of faith community for our kids, so we came here. And there was no dogma. Nobody wanted to tell me what to think. There were no rules I had to follow to get into heaven. That wasn't even a thing either. And the message I most often heard was about love and caring for the welfare of others. And that resonated. Then a few years later, when Betty Kornitzer was the minister and I became the congregation president, we did a retreat where we learned how to deep listen. This was so foreign. After all, I was the child of someone who had catalyzed the need in me to be heard by others. So I'd tell you what was the best solution. A communication legacy that was probably hard to be on the receiving end of. So to deep listen, listening to understand, this took hearing to another level. Listening free of the responsibility to fix the problem. Turning off the mind that seeks to make connections, pulling up memories of similar instances, or worse, the multitasking, listening mind that while the other person speaks, builds a case like a lawyer for the rebuttal, the defense, the explanation. I think at times deep listening has helped me be a parent to an adult child, and I'm so grateful for the friendships where this is a gift we give each other to be heard and understood. I'm sure I'm a better therapist after becoming aware of listening. And through my therapy process, and probably the process of aging, I've developed the ability to tune into, hear my own thoughts, trust my instincts, and make space to listen to my needs and desires. And ultimately, after hearing so many spiritual and religious points of view, I've realized that my own inner voice is what connects me to divinity. My enthusiastic joy in nature's beauty, my artistic expression, sorrow and compassion for those suffering, heart-filling love for others. This drinking in of all that existence offers, life, this is mine for me. The everything is a miracle awareness. And you're never alone when you listen to your inner voice.
Ice cream makes a sound as it melts. It's true. I learned this last Saturday. Lee and I were with Beatrice and James and Lulu in our very first session of the Wonder Explorers class for the third graders in preparation for our affirmation of their presence here in our congregation. And the point of the class is to teach the children what I like to call the gentle art of self-reflection. And we're treating it as kind of a scientific experiment where there's a logbook where we pay really close attention to the things around us and log them. And at the same time, we pay attention to what's going on within us, the things that we're feeling emotionally, physically. So we had them do something really fun. They tasted 4 different kinds of ice cream. But we wanted them to pay attention to all of their senses. And as they held the ice cream up to their ears, I kind of tried to not roll my eyes, but they heard something. So I held it up to my ear, and I even took the little hearing aid thing out and stuck it right in there, and darn it, they were right. That ice cream made a sound as it melts. It's kind of a fizzing sound. So it got us thinking about all these other things, other foods that make noises, and I don't know, other foods that we like, other foods that are cold, foods that are hot, and the emotions that they bring up for us. And it was so lovely how much they enjoyed the space to just pay attention like that in our quiet little circle downstairs on an overcast Saturday morning. And to do it together. And I kind of envied that experience because I didn't really have that when I was a kid. I grew up in a really loud house. There were 4 children and 4 adults that included my mother's sister. And the two of them grew up in a house that was really, really loud. It was 8 kids and their parents with 3 bedrooms and a kitchen and no living room and no outdoor space. Can you imagine what it was like? So I don't want to make any judgment about sort of the loudness of my family, but it was loud, really, really loud. So I didn't learn until I was in my 20s that I actually thrive in stillness and solitude. It's the place where I can really reconnect with myself and recharge my batteries so that I can go into the world being as creative and open-hearted as I want to be. And in my art and architecture training, I came to really appreciate quiet simplicity, maybe even quiet elegance. Not just like an audible kind of quiet, but a visual and spatial kind of quiet. Early in my career, I was tasked with coming up with our company's very first Yellow Pages ad. You know, not just a listing in the list of contractors, but like an actual ad. And we were going to do a quarter page. This was a really big deal, if you remember the Yellow Pages. I met with the salespeople who were also kind of designers and liaisons with the department that actually created the layout. And everything they showed me was these big, bold, boxy letters that took up a lot of space. And they only had 3 or 4 fonts, and you could have black or red. And there was all this weird clip art. It was the 1980s, and all this stuff was so dated. It looked like it was out of the 40s and 50s, with cigar-chomping guys in fedoras looking at plans on the hood of their 1940s pickup truck. It all just seemed so irrelevant. And to look at the pages, it was so crowded that it was visually loud. And I thought, wow, the best way to stand out would be to just have simple blank space with our name right in the middle, in simple letters, and then in little letters down at the bottom, our contact information. They couldn't do it. The only way they knew how to sell was by yelling, and they would not produce the ad that I asked for. What we got looked like everyone else's, and it was just this loud quarter-page ad and amidst 3 other loud quarter-page ads, and it was an absolute waste of money. The thing that was funny is I had, when I was describing to them the ad that I wanted, I imagined Holly Golightly in A Breakfast at Tiffany's. Remember that movie? She walks into this cocktail party in her own apartment, and people are crazy. They're like drunk, they're stepping over each other, stuff is getting spilled everywhere, it's loud. And she just walks into this beautiful cocktail dress, and all eyes turn to her. That beautiful, elegant simplicity. I didn't get it. But last week, something kind of incredible happened. On March 4th, there was a demonstration down in the center of Wakefield on Main Street. And I got there and I noticed that the crowd, most of the people looked the same. Everybody was wearing sneakers or boots and wool scarves and warm coats and big, loud, very clever signs. And I didn't get the memo, I guess, because I didn't realize it was quite that cold. And I was wearing, my Oxford wingtips and a sport coat and, a silk ascot. And I was carrying 2 signs. They were just simple white signs, each one with one word. Loving, from our mission statement, and truth, one of our value words. Just simple, hand-painted black letters on white background. I looked completely anachronistic. But someone snapped a picture, which amazingly made it into the New York Times. And in the photo, I had a great big smile on my face because I was among my people. People of peace and love, willing to up the status quo, people willing to speak truth to power. I didn't have much to say. I was just happy to be there, listening, watching, taking it all in, feeling my own feelings, and noticing them. So I kind of stood out in the crowd the way that I used to hope to, like kind of the butcher version of Holly Golightly, slightly butcher version. I kind of thought, wow, I'm like that Yellow Pages ad made manifest. But the thing is that now in a world where a protester can be labeled a threat to foreign policy and detained thousands of miles from home and threatened with deportation, all without any real charges, I have to wonder about the sanity of that move, showing up at a demonstration and standing out in the crowd. Am I making a target of myself just by showing up to a demonstration that will get characterized as supporting terrorism? Part of me feels like we need to protest, like we need to show up with all the small, dignified ones and the big, loud, clever ones, and be willing to put our bodies on the line for people who are at risk, to lay down in the road and be dead, to put ourselves in front of police with all of their artillery on them, to stand up for what's right. But another part of me feels like, is it too great a risk? If we risk ourselves in that way, will we be making ourselves unavailable for people who really need us? People who need us to transport them across state lines to safety. People who need us to shelter them in our homes. If we put ourselves at risk, are we taking ourselves out of the community of care? And I don't really know. But one thing is really clear to me. Wisdom and connection come from slowing down, from paying attention to our senses, noticing the world around us together and making note of it, reflecting on our experiences, paying attention to where the needs really are. That kind of systematic, intentional practice of learning and caring for ourselves is what will give us the individual strength and patience to work together cohesively, to rise up to whatever challenges face us. It's a lesson that the transcendentalists of the 19th century tried to teach us. When we slow down, pay attention to ourselves, to the world around us, and the impact we have on each other, we tap into the divine wisdom within each of us. The way to be noticed and taken seriously in a crowd where nobody can hear each other over all of the boisterous chaos and anger is not to add to the visible clutter and audible noise of the world. That's just chaos that everyone shuts out. The way to be noticed is to just pay attention and allow ourselves to be grounded amidst it all. That's what we're trying to teach to Beatrice and James and Lulu and all of our kids. And it's a skill that we can all stand to work on ourselves together. And maybe, just maybe doing that also serves the purpose of keeping us safe in a world where it's chaos that gets the most attention. So, since I have a couple of minutes, I'd like to say a little something about the pledge drive. Last week in our New to You UCSC class right after the service, in the Oneto room, having lunch, and I was talking about what Mary presented to us. 30 pledge units as of last Sunday had already made their pledges, totaling more than $146,000. I want you all to do the math for a second. That's almost $5,000 per pledge unit. Now, we don't expect everybody to give $5,000. If every single pledge unit, if every single household or individual making a pledge gave $2,200, we would exceed our goal and do everything that we wanted to do. But of course, not everybody can do that. I just want us all to be really mindful and grateful for the people who go way above and beyond what's expected of them so that we can all be here, regardless of our ability to give. so that there's always a place for everyone who needs us. Please rise now in body or